I love what I do. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's draining at times. And yes, sometimes I just walk around shaking my head because it's hard to figure out how to work through a challenge. But I think there's nothing like finding your calling and finding a way to make impact. And I think that's one of the things you're going to love about today's guest. Today's guest is all about how could she reposition her business and the work she does so that she can help more people, so she can make a bigger impact. And she found that she had to pivot in her business. She had to move in a different direction to make that happen. So if you're finding that you're hitting a brick wall, if you're struggling with connecting with certain things in your business, this interview, I think, is going to help you because it's going to show you that there are multiple ways to be successful, multiple ways to find a path forward, and you can still make the impact, even if what you're doing right now isn't working so great. All right, let's jump into the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next interview. I think you're going to be really excited about hearing about our guest and not only her story, but what she does, because she is the epitome of pivoting. When we all start our businesses, we're not sure how we can help. We're not sure how we can make an impact. And at times we have one idea in our head, but as we get out in the world, as we start promoting, talking, building a business, sometimes we find a way to be more effective. We find a way to make a bigger impact. And our guest today did that. And I think it can be a great inspiration for many of you out there that are maybe feeling a little stuck in your business. Many of you who are trying to figure out, is what I'm doing really matter? I think our guest today is going to give you some of that insight, as well as inspire many of you out there that are thinking about your health, thinking about changes you want to do in your health. I think our guest, as a certified nutritionist, is going to not only give us some tips about how she built her brand, how she wrote a book, and I don't want to give it all away, so I'll stop there, but how we can all live healthy and fabulous, healthy lives. So without further ado, let me welcome our guest. Terri, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was a sneaky little intro. You're giving a little bit away, but that's okay. People will still listen and they'll be excited to learn more, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Plus, I think there's just so much in your story that's really exciting because for a lot of us, we want to get on that stage. We want to have that opportunity to get the word out to tell people, but finding our way is hard. So I want to give, just before we dive into all of my questions, let's just give everyone kind of an overview of where you are today. Let's talk about the brand. Let's talk about Fabulous Health. Let's talk about the book. Let's talk about where you are today. Then I'll go into the questions of how you got there. So how did you build the brand? Let's let everyone know about the book, the podcast, all the great things that you're doing.
So I'm a solopreneur, and I tell people that and they go, what's that? Well, it's an entrepreneur with no staff and you're just doing it all by yourself. And maybe it's not a real word, but I use it anyway. And I had been trying very, very hard to do private consultations, private classes with individuals, and I found it really, really challenging because 90% of my work was marketing. And I have a master's in nutrition. I'm board certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I've got an undergrad in sport and exercise science. Do I know anything about marketing? No. And so that was not my strong point. I also have a love-hate relationship with social media. And I understand that social media is marketing in this day and age because nobody gets the local paper anymore and has a little look at a print ad and said, oh, that looks interesting. I might call that person on the telephone. I mean, it's not 1980 anymore. So I found it very frustrating and difficult to get traction. And I think that was because maybe of my age or maybe because I just didn't have the love for social media that, you kind of really need to love it. And I spent so much money on business coaches that said things like, if you don't like doing it, it won't come to you. You have to embrace the social media. And once you say, I love social media, all of a sudden it will work for you. Well, I tried that, didn't work. So you're right, I did pivot. And the reason I pivoted is because I have a calling, and I know you have a calling too, and all the people on your show have a calling. We really want to open people's eyes. We really want to help people. We want to improve their health. We want to help the planet. We want to help animals by improving people's health because they're not eating them. All the things that we want to do, I could not do at scale talking to one or two people a day, one or two clients a day. I couldn't fill my roster, so to speak. And I had so much information that I wanted to get out into the world. I said, that's it, I'm writing a book. And the book took 3 years. Sorry about that, people who want to write a book. There are quicker ways to do it, and I can give you a lesson on how to do it more quickly than that. But I chose to write it old school. And I know I could have dictated it. I know I could have got a ghostwriter, which I wouldn't have done anyway. But I chose to write it old school and research, and it took a long time. And then I have this beautiful product, which can I show? I'm going to show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But if you're watching, there it is. That's the book. It's called Fabulous Health, A Simple Plan to Get Well and Stay Well. And I have this product that now it only costs $25. So there's not that barrier to change that I had before. If you wanted to hire me, I mean, my prices were like $1,200. You know, that's too much for some people. Mm-hmm. So $25, you can get into my brain and learn all the things you need to learn. And then if you need help, hey, I'm here, and I'm not going to charge you $1,200, maybe $100 or $200 or whatever for a consultation, a session, but not for a whole program. And then I thought, well, this is great because, 6,000 people have my book now. That's awesome. But I need to see more people change their lives because we know the state of people's health is not great. The state of animal agriculture is abhorrent, and we want to change all these things. Well, now I need to get on stage. Now I need to not speak to 20 people. I need to speak to 2,000 people. So that's where I am now. That's where my journey of a solopreneur is going, and I'm still on the trajectory, and it's exciting and scary all at the same time. But it's all because of this desire to help people help themselves and to help people stop eating animals.
Yeah. And I think that's the key is when you have a sense of what you want to do, often it's finding the right platform. It's finding the right way to do it. And also sometimes and I don't know if you'll agree with this statement, but I think sometimes we have to find like our first lane that allows you to get that initial impact. And then sometimes you can spread out to other components. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can spread out and maybe even bring in some marketing components. Maybe it's not social media, but I know you have a podcast. I know you have some other kind of assets and things that you keep up. But I find for a lot of people, they get stuck. And when they get stuck, they kind of give up because that initial idea doesn't seem to be working, as opposed to saying, hey, just pivot. Try something different. Mm-hmm. Pivot, try something that speaks to you, speaks to your soul, gives you that feeling of impact, and then circle back to that other idea. Circle back to it because it might be a little bit different after you've made that connection kind of with your group, the people that you can impact. Would you agree with that statement? Or what's your thoughts?
100 million%, if that's a thing. Absolutely. There is enormous inertia in business. But then when you think about your life, there's enormous inertia in everything. If you want to, I've run a marathon, and I don't know if you can see in the background, but I've got my marathon award up on the wall. Depends on what shot you're looking at. But the thing is, running a marathon's really hard. And we know from the get-go it's really hard. And we also know that you need to do certain amount of work to be able to get to the starting line, and that you need to do certain amount of work on the day to get to the finish line. Well, we forget that in business. We just think, I've got this great idea and I'm going to launch it to the world and everybody's going to love it and I'm going to make lots of money. Well, no, It's a marathon. It's always been a marathon. Business is hard and you have to get your ducks in a row. And sometimes you don't even know what those ducks are. And so it's a learning experience. You lean on other people's experience and you ask people, maybe you buy some courses or whatever it is so that you can learn the things that you need to learn so that you can get past that inertia and start to get some momentum. And that's hard. And a lot of people give up before they even get that momentum.
Yeah. And I love that you brought in the marathon analogy, because I even tell a lot of people to think about other things that they've done in their lives that are hard. So they can make the connection between the work that they're doing in their business. Because sometimes, like you said, we have the dream. And I think that's the negative side of social media, is that sometimes we see the polished or finished product of people who've built their businesses, or sometimes it's the facade in front of their business that they've built. And we think that it was a simple lap, around the block to get there. As opposed to when you think about something where you had to learn an instrument, or in your example, writing a book, a lot of these things are hard, deep work. And many of us have accomplished things in life, but we just forget when we get to the business side and we hit that wall, we forget. So one thing I want to kind of, ask you to maybe share with our audience is, how did you push through? How did you push through when either you found that your business had to shift, when you said, okay, I'm going to write a book, and then you were like, whoa, this is going to be a little bit of a long-term plan. This isn't a 30 days or less. How did you find not only the willpower, the determination, how did you stay on course, as opposed to just feeling like, maybe this isn't right? Maybe because, sometimes people feel like the resistance that they feel is a sign, as opposed to saying, hey, sometimes all these processes do have resistance. We sometimes have to rise to an occasion to move forward.
That's a great question. And I don't know whether this is the answer you want to hear, but I'm 58. And so I've lived some life. And it's taking me until now to realize that I have a calling. And that calling, I've been put on this earth to help people not die of heart disease, diabetes, Crohn's disease, cancer, all those things, by supporting a vegan lifestyle. That's my calling. It's like I have no choice, and that I don't want a choice anyway, right? Because that's what I'm here to do. So even if it was the hardest thing on the planet, I would just keep going, because this is inside me. This is what I truly believe I was put on earth to do. I was put on this earth to help people. I know it sounds ridiculous. See the light, like wake up from their stupor of just going with the flow and eating whatever's put in front of them and not thinking for themselves, not thinking about how it affects the planet, not thinking about how it affects the animals, and not thinking about how it affects their own health. It's like I'm being pushed to do this. And I know people have said, it's God or it's the universe or whatever it is. There's something inside me that says this is what you're doing. And I love it. I'm so motivated, intrinsically motivated, that it doesn't matter if I'm sick for a couple of weeks, I just get back to doing it. I fell off a mountain and I ripped my ACL in half when I was skiing. Wow. And it was awesome because I couldn't move. So the only thing I could do was sit on the couch and write. So I actually put that bit in the book about how this was kind of like helpful. I may have spent another 6 months writing if I wasn't forced on that couch or in, wherever I was sitting down with my laptop on my lap, writing the book. It happened quicker because I was forced into this situation. But it's a calling. And I think if you are in business and you don't love what you do, you need to find what really inspires you intrinsically. Whatever it is that you want to do, that's what you should be doing. I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. She wants to go back to university and do some stupid degree that she thinks will make her more money. And I said, yeah, but I know that's not what you want to do. You want to do something else. And she said, yeah, but there's no money in it. I said, I don't care. Money will come when it comes, but your very interested in this other subject, why don't you just go to university and do that subject? Because that's where your love is. So I think it takes a while when you're younger. Maybe you chase the bucks, but when you're older, you're like, no, money is irrelevant. And look, it's not financially viable for me right now, but it's getting there. And I'm cool with that. I'm lucky because my husband can support both of us, but it's the desire to do good in the world. And it takes a while to find that. I mean, some people are awesome and they can do that when they're kids and they continue being awesome people, but it took me a while.
Yeah. I do think it takes a while, honestly. I think it takes time to find that thing because I think a lot of people will have, like, if you really look at most people's lives, they end up having 1 or 2 or 3 careers.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they were maybe highly successful when they were younger, you often see them reiterate and then start to do things that they were really passionate about. So I do think everyone's on that path of finding something that really drives them. And also, I think it changes. I think what you don't realize when you're younger, how long life is and how, you know what I mean? You may do something for 15 years and then say, okay, I want to do something different. Or now, after having and gaining that experience, now I can bring that to this space or this area. So I do think, like you said, living a little bit longer does give you a little bit different perspective. But I'm also going to, and this is just maybe the business coach in me, and talk about the financial side of things, because I do think people can follow their passion and drive revenue. I just think we have to get very creative. I think we have to link. And when I say get that revenue, to me, it's all about sustainability. It's not about how much you can stack up. It's not we're not using it as a measuring tool to say if it's success or if it's not. To me, it's a tool to make sure that, you can comfortably pay your bills. You can comfortably, do something nice for someone, donate, do all the things you care about. And what I talk to a lot of people about is finding the thing that they're passionate about and what they do well, and then understanding who has done that even outside of their space and turned it into something that's financially viable. And it's interesting to see how that develops, but also, like, to your point, that sometimes it takes time. And I don't know how much you want to share or, talk about this side of things, but I find for a lot of people, you have to get a sense of what you need to make this business work. So, for example, if you've written a book, do you want to write a second book? Do you want to be a multiple, author? So you're having books and books coming out. Do you want to speak on certain stages? So the idea is I speak on these stages first, and then I want to work through these stages and these stages. Do you kind of have that roadmap or that process in place? Or are you kind of a let's just see how things go kind of person?
I absolutely have that roadmap, and the book was the first step. I like the book because, as I mentioned before, it's a low-level entrance into health. So anybody can borrow it at the library if they want, if they don't have the finances to purchase a copy. Sometimes I do promotions where you can get the ebook for like 99 cents or something, but normally it's a $25 investment. And I think that that's doable for most people who are struggling with their health because they're paying for other healthcare as well.
Yes.
And I always knew that the next step is speaking in front of lots of people, workshops, hands-on, one-to-many type situations. And I know a lot of business coaches say, you can start off with one-to-one, then you go one-to-many, and then you go, in different areas. But that's my personality. I'm a type A personality. My first job straight out of high school was as a radio DJ in Australia. I like to talk. I like to be seen. I like to stand on stage. Give me a stage, I'm there. And the book was the first step to that. And it's a process. So, and I'm in the process now. So I wouldn't say that I'm immensely successful as a speaker yet because I'm still finding my legs.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think success is such an interesting term when I think about it. I think a lot of times we think about this is where we are at the end, or this is the kind of, this is what we think the end step is. But there's so many milestones in between. Even if we take your marathon example, the first idea is let's finish a marathon. The second idea is, okay, can we get a little faster in our marathon? You know what I mean? Like there's stages in that. And I think sometimes we forget those as we build anything, a business, as we build kind of our lives and as we build the things around us, that we forget all of those stages really exist. Because I was online and I was checking you out and I was like, oh man, she's speaking here, speaking there on this podcast. So when you say, when you talk about your success, I think you've done a great job. I think
Thank
it's
you.
amazing the work that you've done, the places that you have been speaking, the people that you're also connecting with while you're on stage, which I think is a great, not only networking opportunity, but puts you, you know what I mean, in that space. It makes you one of those go-to people. So it was great, as I was cruising around getting ready for this, this interview.
Stalking me.
Just
I love it. I love to
just
be
a little
stalked.
mild.
Everybody should stalk me. I love it because that's what we
Yes.
want, right? We want
Yeah.
people to hear our message.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to know, you can find me at fabuloushealth.net, or if you want to hire me as a speaker, I'm at terrichrisman.com. And those are places where you can see where I've spoken before. And you're so right about connection to others. That's one of the 6 pillars of a healthy lifestyle. And I've just come back from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine conference. And that was a real major player in a lot of the speakers, what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. Business is all about connection. It's not about getting a job or getting a gig or getting a contract or whatever and getting the money in. It's all about connecting with other people who share your vision. And that is for me, that's the most important thing in business. So I met some awesome people at this conference who may or may not end up helping my business. But it doesn't mean if they can't help my business, it doesn't mean I write them off. It's like I keep in contact with these people, and next year I'll probably see them at the conference and we'll talk about what we've been doing and stuff. I think connection is very, very important in business, and not just what it can do for your business, but just for your mental well-being as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's so important to connect with people who are doing similar things, who are doing similar work, because they can show you how they're, breaking through. When you're trying to drive change and be a change agent, it's a little bit different than when you're just kind of teaching the status quo. And a lot of what you're teaching, and at least what I've been reading about what you're teaching, is having people kind of look at their health in a different way. So I think it's important for all of us to connect with people, to get on stages with people that sometimes we're a little intimidated by. I think sometimes when people think about speaking, they're like, how can I share the stage with so-and-so? That was the person that inspired me to go vegan. And I'm like, get on that stage, tell that person, let them know, because it's so important to be there. And I think it really helps all of us kind of elevate ourselves when we're willing to get on those bigger and bigger stages. Now, I know you mentioned that you're a type A personality, so getting on stage and all that stuff was fine. But did you have any moments where you had those butterflies? Did you have any moments where you felt the pressure, or you always have just been, and through every presentation, you've been like, I got it?
I tell myself I've got it. Absolutely. And have I got it? Maybe sometimes, but sometimes maybe not. But you can never get on stage with fear. If anybody's thinking about getting on stage or speaking or doing a presentation or whatever it is, no one can help you except yourself. So you have to have that person inside your head saying, Terri, you are awesome. You're going to nail this. It's going to be fantastic. Will I say my script word for word? Probably not. But then I shouldn't anyway, because I know the guts of the information I'm going to share, and it needs to come out with humanity. I can't just regurgitate a script. So yes, it's going to be different every time I talk to somebody, but you have to have self-belief. You have to have self-efficacy, and you have to go out there believing that you are going to slay it. And if you can't do that, then practice, practice, practice. Practice in front of your cat, practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of the video yourself, and watch and be critical and say, why did you have shifty eyes? And when you stumbled, why did you not pick it up so quickly? And then learn from those things. And then I think it's all about doing. And once you do, you just get better at doing and doing and doing and doing. And so I expect to get better at my craft, forever. I don't expect to be a perfect speaker anytime.
Yeah. And I love what you said about practice, because I think a lot of people get very nervous and they think that they have to wait until they're on that stage and prepare for that. The idea that speaking in many ways, speaking through other channels, doing things on YouTube, all those channels give you even a taste of what it's like to kind of have the spotlight on you. Or like you said, get into the bathroom mirror and give a presentation because, sometimes you just have to do it to experience it. And I think people forget how important it is practice. It's kind of like when you were a kid and your parents got you into anything like piano or got you into something. And it's just like every day I got to do this. But
and then eventually you can play a song, right?
Yes.
So all the weeks of going dunk, 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 dunk and thinking, oh, this is hideous. One day you can play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and all of a sudden your confidence level goes up. Absolutely. So it's the same with anything that you do. Nothing is easy. Everything takes work. And as long as you don't resent that, as long as you realize that's part of the process, and sometimes it'll be awesome and sometimes it'll be not so great, life goes on, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now let's talk a little about your podcast. Now I read that do you always do your podcast live every week, or do you record?
No, I used, okay. So when I started the podcast, I did 50 live shows in 50 days. That was my challenge for myself.
Okay.
And
I love it.
they were, 10, 12 minutes of me. And that's basically the crux of the book, right? So all the things that I could talk about in my head without having to do too much research. And sure, before each podcast, I'd probably spend an hour doing research, getting some facts and figures, making sure I didn't say things that were untrue, particularly when it comes to scientific studies. You want to say the right percentages, or you want to say the right study and give people places to go further. But I just wanted to get out there and give people information. And it was a challenge to myself. So I did 50 live. And then after that, I started interviewing people. And so I interviewed people like Dr. Barnard. I interviewed a lady who had lost 80 pounds. I interviewed a person who had cancer and had a double mastectomy and then went plant-based and realized that maybe she could have done that beforehand, but, what can she do? So lots of interesting stories. And I think that's now where I'm heading with the podcast, is to get more stories from people, because people love stories and they love hearing from people just like them who have overcome challenges. So it'll be a mixture. I met tons and tons of really awesome doctors and researchers at this conference, and I'll probably call a few of those to get on and talk about their latest research. But it'll be a mixture of that. So that's where I'm going. And it's not live, but, that's okay.
Oh, yeah. And I did the same thing. I had a podcast that I did live. I even recorded it live for a long time. Even this podcast we used to do live. So now I record it because, things change. And like you said, I love that challenge in the beginning. When I did it in the beginning, I did the same thing. I went live because I was like, I'm going to show up every week. I'm going to do it. And if it's booked in my calendar, I'm actually going to make it happen. So I think that's a great way to get started. So anyone out there that's thinking about doing a podcast, you're hearing it from two folks here. And then there's nothing wrong with changing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like ripping off the Band-Aid, right? If it's scary, just do it. Jump off the bridge or whatever. No, don't jump off a bridge. But, jump off the diving board. Whatever it is that's scary, just do it. And then you realize it's not as scary and that you're actually quite capable. And by doing things live, it lifts your confidence. It lifts your self-efficacy. It makes you realize I can do anything. and then you can do the next thing because you have proof of concept.
Absolutely. Let's make sure, where can people listen to your podcast?
It's called The Fabulous Health Show, and it's on YouTube at my YouTube channel, which is Fabulous Health TLC, Fabulous Health TLC. Those are my initials. I couldn't get Fabulous Health. Somebody else had it. And you can listen to it on all the podcasts. So your Apple Podcasts, your Spotify's, or there's millions of them. And I just signed up to all of them. So it's on all those too.
Okay. Now, if someone is they're listening to our podcast and they're like, you know what, I could use a little nutrition support. I could maybe eat a little bit better. Because while a lot of our listeners tend to be vegan or going vegan already, not all of us vegans are the healthiest of vegans out there. So any recommendations on things that people should watch out for, people should be paying attention to, especially some of our vegans out there who maybe think they kind of got it lined, they have a sense of what they should be doing, but maybe they should relook at their nutrition, relook at their plates, and make sure they are, approaching their health in the best way possible.
Okay, that's a great question. And I did that myself in COVID. I put on about 20 pounds and I said, this shouldn't be happening. What am I doing wrong? And we need to look at the amount of whole foods we're eating compared to the amount of ultra-processed foods we're eating, because ultra-processed foods typically contain more sugar, salt, and fat in them. And look, this is a conversation for another time because it could go on forever, but just be aware of the amount of whole foods compared to ultra-processed foods and also fried foods. As a vegan, when we go out, a lot of the times the only stuff we can get is fried. So there's fries, there's, pretend not chicken nuggets or whatever that's available, and things that are cooked in oil also are detrimental to health. They're very, very high in calories, so they put on weight very easily, plus they are inflammatory. So those two things are the things that I would look out for. And the way you do that is you cook at home. You have control over what you do. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go out to eat. Sure, go out to eat, but not more than you cook at home.
Yeah, that's a good point about keeping that balance. Because, and especially as a lot of people who listen are entrepreneurs, they're busy, they're tired. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I'll just grab something. I'll just pick something up. I don't have time to. And I do think it's one of those things where you have to start to prioritize or find a way so that you can get those healthy options. One of my friends helped me out she got me into chopping up my kale. So now I chop up my kale at the beginning of the week and it's already cleaned, ready to go. So I can make a quick salad very easily almost every day. And that kale will keep almost the entire week for me.
That's an awesome idea. I do that myself. Yeah, it's fantastic. Just something really easy like that. And in fact, on the weekends, I do it with all my veggies. I chop them all up and I put them in mason jars in the fridge. So they're all in there. So if I want to stir fry, it's just dump and go. If I want a soup, dump and go. Want a chili, dump and go. It's just easy peasy. And there's actually a podcast episode on my podcast with a lady called Diane Doyle, who is from a Facebook group called Plant-Based Dallas. And she taught me that trick. And so if anybody wants more information on that, they can look at the podcast.
Perfect. So I talked as usual. So I'm going to wrap things up, but obviously we could talk a little bit longer if we had more time. But I do want to make sure that people can get in touch with you, whether if somebody needs help from a nutrition standpoint, if they're looking to grab your book, or I know you do some strategy calls, or if they should be obviously checking out your podcast or any other way they should be getting connected with you, whether they just want to be inspired by your story or if they need some help from a nutrition standpoint.
Thank you so much. Yes. So I have two websites. One is fabuloushealth.net and the other one is terrichrisman.com. Terrichrisman.com is for people who want to hire me as a speaker. But for anybody else who's interested in learning more about plant-based nutrition, who want to know about the book or want a strategy call or the podcast, it's all at fabuloushealth.net.
Perfect. And I'm going to just throw in there, I also think you bring a very global perspective to the speaking circuit. I think a lot of us are very US focused all the time. So I think one of the great things about following your work, I think one of those great things of maybe even someone, if you're listening and want to hire Terri as a speaker, I think bringing in somebody on your panels or anything like that, I'm just always giving out advice. I think it'd be great to have you on the panel because not only from your expertise, but also that global perspective, I think is such an amazing asset to bring to the stage.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. That's very kind of you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for spending the time with me. Thank you so much for just giving me a little bit of insight into how you're running your business, how you're putting things together, how you're building it. And also thanks for kind of just sharing where you are today, because I think it's so important for people to hear how we pivot, what we're doing, what we think is next, and how we're going to continue to grow. So it's been a fun kind of conversation, especially as we tell people that life is long as you get older. You start to see things differently. I cover up my gray so people don't really realize how old I am, but we'll still keep that in the hush hush. but I definitely know what you mean. So it was great talking to you today. I hope, I can't wait to continue to follow all of your speaking engagements and really looking forward to keeping in touch and hearing about all the great work you're doing.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. It's been an awesome time.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone who's listened to this or watched this podcast or episode of Pivot. It's always great to come to you guys with stories of people who are building their business and how they are making it work. I think often when we build our businesses, we think it's only one way to do it. We think we have to have it perfectly aligned. We have to figure it all out from the beginning. But I do believe building a business and also finding your way and finding a way to make an impact is something you do over time. It's something that develops over time and something you do in real time, whether you're doing it on stage, like our guest, Terri, or whether you're just figuring out as you're going. I hope today's podcast inspired you to keep going, to not give up, to find that calling, find that right space so you continue to make an impact, because we need all of us out there, all of these vegans, everybody out there making a difference in the world. It's so important. So thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. And we can't wait to see you in our next interview. Bye.